I'm going to tell you a story about Doveton in a fairly informal way. I've got a whole suite of photographs that I'd like to share with you. And I would preface what I'm going to say with the fact that we're not saying we want everyone to be doing Doveton in Queensland and anywhere else. What I want to share with you, the work we've been doing over the last 7-8 years and where we've got to, what our learnings are, and we can work together to think about how some of the lessons that we've learnt might be applied in different settings. We are very fortunate in the last few months. Our government has decided to adopt the learnings from Doveton and take it into 10 more schools across Victoria. And Julius Coleman, our director of our foundation, has agreed to support those 10 sites for the next 10 years. So those of you that are in government and community know what a significant commitment that is. So we're very excited about that. Scared stiff, mind you, but very excited about that. So our whole goal in looking at the Doveton work from the beginning was about how we can demonstrate a very different way of working. What can we learn from that? What will make a difference, what won't make a difference, and then how we might look at taking that to scale. So we very much always use the term about from demonstration to scale. So the planning around Doveton is really about a place-based approach to supporting the health and wellbeing and learning of children and families, utilising the universal platform of a school. And I know Australia is a very big country and it's not always possible to run a range of integrated models off of a single site. So this whole development is not about bricks and mortar, it is about practices and processes and how we join up for families, what's already existing. In the work we've been doing at Doveton, we are utilising the school platform and in the 10 sites going forward, but we're also doing some work looking at how we might do virtual join up. What does that mean? What does that look like? And how can we use technology to support us? The work at Doveton has been the first time that there's been this private-public partnership in Australia where a philanthropist, an individual philanthropist has gone to the state government and they've actually signed a memorandum of understanding about a long-term 10-year commitment to this change. So this is the Doveton story. So this school was built in about 1950, 1960 and was still operating in 2010. This building, a revamped bike shed, was where the maternal and child health service, the playgroups and family support was delivered for 12 years up until 2010. Now you look at that, that was actually what it looked like the day it closed. It's a miracle that anything happened out of that building, but really good things did happen, not particularly joined up. This is the new school that opened in 2012, and I won't go into this in too much details because it'll take too long, but basically 3 primary schools closed and a brand new school was built, including an early childhood service. So the model that we work on goes from prenatal care right through to adult engagement, education and training. So this is the brand new school. It's a beautiful school. It sits on the hill in Doveton. Doveton's a very disadvantaged area. Some of you have already been to visit. You will know it's the best building in town, which is great. And we were terrified that no one had come in the door when we opened those doors in 2012. And 3 years later, and now if we look 6 years later, there are thousands of people that come through the doors of this place every week. So very quickly, the Doveton model governance is structured in very similar ways to other schools in Victoria. We have a college council, the Doveton school management, which comprises of the principal and the assistant principals and a range of other key players. There's a strong parent advisory group, an agency advisory group. We have a number of partners that are on site located in the building that are part of the primary partner group. And then there's a range of secondary partners that come in and out delivering services. And we have a very strong practitioner network. So the practitioners get together on a regular basis to talk about the services, how things are going, referrals, etc. So this governance structure puts the responsibility for the whole of what happens at Doveton in the hands of the school principal. And it's now in the new sites going forward, the new contracts with principal clearly puts the principal in charge of the whole integrated model. So the outcomes that are to be delivered sit with the responsibility of the principal. And that's the only way we're going to get complete join up and, if you like, continued investment from the school space. So the services are provided. We start prenatally. We have something called Baby College where we enrol mothers in the third trimester of pregnancy. Doveton's a very multicultural area, a lot of newly arrived refugees as well as long-term unemployed, intergenerational unemployment. And we really need to start early. Lots of our kids coming to school without the skills they need to engage in the formal school system. So the only way to address that is to start really early. So Baby College is something that we've instituted. We have a very high-class early childhood centre that's awarded a Centre of Excellence for the second time last year. So we're only one of 3 in Australia that's received it twice. And we know that mediocre care in the early years just makes no difference whatsoever. So if we're going to do early childhood services, they have to be exceptionally high quality. And all of our work from our babies right through to our 5-year-olds is all degree qualified teacher led. So very intentional educational program. These are some of the photos. We have a very strong focus on oral language and self-regulation. They are the 2 key areas in early childhood that we need to focus on most. A lot of kids starting school in our area at 5 don't speak English, don't have language, and if you don't start school with good grasp of oral language when you're 5 and 6, then by the time you're in grade 3, you're not going to read. So we really need to have this focus, and we do a lot of work around oral language. We, in the Early Learning Centre, we do a lot of activity that is about children exploring, children making friends, trying to develop communities that children can feel part of. A lot of our kids come from suboptimal home environments. Child protection, mental health is very high in our community, and so we're trying to create an environment where children can thrive. This is one of my very favourite photos. We do a lot of work with older children and younger children, looking at the development of empathy. And you can see this older child is really keen on having a relationship with this baby. I'm not sure the baby's too keen, but he's really looking to how we can support that child. So we do a lot of join up of older kids and buddying up with younger children. A lot of our kids know no other way of responding rather than hitting out. And so it's how we get them to develop empathy and spend time with their other children. In the school program, we have a traditional school program from prep, which is our first year of school. We only go to year 9 in the secondary because there's a large feeder secondary college down the road. But we run a whole range of programs in the school, from soft, lots of cooking and outdoor. We've got a hands-on learning program as well as high academic skills. So there's a wide variety. We run very strong music and arts programs as well. This photo is an interesting one because what we did last year is we took the school down to the local shopping centre. So we ran pop-up classrooms. So this is a classroom not in the car park, but in and around the local shopping centre. We wanted to take education out to the community. A lot of our families are scared of schools. They had very bad school experiences themselves. So we wanted to look at how we could do some lessons. So we went from the early years right through to year 9 over the course of a week and ran several classes. The teachers went down with the kids, and we had lots of people that sat on white plastic chairs and just watched what went on. It was very, very interesting experience. We have a very large volunteer program. We have 100 volunteers a week, about 45 of those in classrooms and another 55 in different activities around the school. We do lunchtime activities. One of the big programs that the kids are really interested in is chess, which really surprised me. But we have a lunchtime chess program and volunteers who run that. Volunteers with reading in different languages. We try and get books in different languages, and so that we use volunteers in that way. We have a very strong parent engagement program. The Coleman Foundation contributes funds to employ a volunteer coordinator, parent engagement coordinator, and a work and learning coordinator. Those 3 roles are what we call the glue that holds everything together. So those 3 positions are absolutely critical in terms of the work and the development that we've done. We do a lot of fun days, a lot of days where we offer food, free food. We have a food bank. And it's all about how we get people to come in the doors, in the front doors. If those of you who've been there will know, we have double sliding doors that open. It's an open facility. Anyone in our community can access our school. You don't have to have a child in the school. We have supported playgroup 3 times a week. We've had so many families accessing playgroup. Save the Children, our partner, delivers that. We've had to now develop a waiting list, sadly, for supported playgroup, which is not a very good thing to have, but we don't have space to run any more sessions. We run a lot of adult activities. In the first couple of years, we scrounged sewing machines. A lot of our newly arrived refugees were really keen to sew, and what that did was bring them into the college, bring them into the place. They bring their kids, they sew. We have conversational English. Some of the women have set up small business projects where they're making clothes and selling them at markets. And there's some more photos. So you can see in the photos there's kids there with their parents. So we try not to separate kids from their parents, particularly in the first little while, because a lot of our families are too anxious to do that. So for a gold coin contribution, we provide a childcare worker who can be in the room at the same time as they're pursuing their activity. This is some of our men's stuff, and men have been it's great to see so many guys here today. I'm usually in the early childhood space. You don't see very many guys, so it's great. But men have been very difficult to engage with. So the group at the top exercising, they're a group of Afghani young men who are presenting at community health services with depression, and on investigation they came back to us and said these guys, they were presenting with chronic pain, but when they explored it further it was actually depression. These guys don't have visas, they can't work. What do? They're in their late 20s, 30s, most of them. And so we started running exercise and other programs. We opened a men's shed, so there's lots of activity. We set up a bike club so they can repair bikes. Lots of our kids don't have a bike that's all in one piece that they can actually ride. So there's a big bike program. And we've also just engaged in a partnership with the Bulldogs Football Club in Melbourne to run a Men of the West program out at Doveton. The cooking and hospitality space has been really huge in our school. We have a number of hospitality programs. The lady in the bottom with the blue hood, Patsy is a single mother. Patsy's never had a job since she's left school. And in the last 5 years, Patsy's moved from not doing anything, being on unemployment, to participating in volunteering in classrooms. She's completed a Cert 3, now completed her diploma earlier this year, and she has a full-time job in education support in the school, and this year she's president of our school council. She actually ran an election campaign. There were lots of people, and she went out, vote for me, this is why I want this, and it was quite an amazing transformation. And she's one of many of the women that have gone through those different phases and are now working. This is our food bank. We collect, a group of mums get together, this is volunteering, and everyone puts in $10. They take their $10 down the local market, buy bulk fruit and vegetable, and package them into those bags that you can see. So it's a service. They do about 60 of those every Tuesday. There's some of our non-English speaking families. We do, with our partner Brace Skills Plus, we run English 5 mornings a week. English is a very big issue, so there's the sort of structured English classes, but then there's the conversational English with lots of our mothers, particularly mothers, wanting to know, if I get asked it once, I get asked it 10 times, how do I set up Facebook on my PDA, on my iPhone? It's just amazing. But they too will take their children with them. We took them to the local library and enrolled them in the library. They've never seen a library before, and so we're looking to get more books in the home that way, and they are very studious. This mother with the baby on her back, she came for 9 months until she got her diploma of social services. And that baby was on her back the entire 9 months and she never missed a lesson. Very committed. This graduation, when we do graduations at Doveton College, we do them in school time, bring kids out of class so they can see their parents graduating. So the concept of lifelong learning and education is really important. And these are some more graduations. So the bottom, what is it on the left there? Our principal, Greg McMahon, and those women, 12 women who graduated, and there's a guy there too. It's great. They all had a job the day they graduated. So we do a lot of pre-work around jobs, and sometimes it takes 2 years to get someone a job. But a big part of that is how you work with someone to talk about what kind of training would suit what kind of job you're looking for. There are too many people that rush into certified training courses that don't lead them anywhere. So we do a lot of work in helping people to think about what training they might want to do, therefore what job. We don't find people jobs, but we help them with interviews, job applications, clothes to wear to an interview, that kind of thing is what we do. These are our partners, and there are others that are not on this list. So we don't do this work alone. This work is done completely in partnership. We don't fund any programs. What we do is work with agencies to bring their programs and deliver them from our site. We don't charge anyone to do that. What we expect is that they will participate, share the vision that we have for Doveton and contribute. We have international partners around our research and evaluation and training, and we have a strong standard MOU, if you like, with a number of our key primary partners who are on site all of the time. So maternal and child health services, child health and wellbeing, we have a full suite of allied health delivered, family support services, our supported playgroups, we run immunisation from there, we have Centrelink on a regular basis, we run legal services on a regular basis. There's a whole myriad of partners, as you can see. And we have some additional philanthropic funding that we try to use for innovation. So we want to test and try things, but we do have a strong ethos that we believe there is a lot of services in the community already, and the feedback from our agencies was that the biggest issue for them is no-show. People don't make appointments, they don't turn up, they don't come. If we set we have a structure of warm referrals at Doveton, and the warm referrals are what brings people. So let me introduce you to Mary, the MCH nurse, rather than saying, go and make an appointment. And that's the way we get people interested. Our partners have been just fabulous. We wouldn't do this work without the open-mindedness and willingness to have a go by our partners. So we have a very detailed evaluation. I don't have time to go into it, but if you go onto the Doveton website or the Our Place website, you'll see all the information about that. But we're collecting data on children and young people, on their families and on communities. And we're really looking at what we're learning and how the system, which the back end of the system, needs to change to support this integrated way of working. Because most of what we do, we're banging on doors. It's just not, and you would all know that. The system's set up in silos. It's very difficult to bring those together. So 5 years on, and once again I've just picked a few things, but there is a very detailed data analysis that we've just now gone through. So we've seen a 13% reduction in the AEDC, the Early Childhood Development Index. Now we're not saying that Doveton College alone contributed to it, did that, but we made a contribution. We're sitting in the AEDC in, again this year, so 2018, so it's going to be very interesting to see whether we're continuing to improve there. When we did a survey of our school kids 3 years ago to look at what they did, what activities they engaged in before or after school, only 7% of our kids did anything before and after school. And if you went into the upper Brighton or somewhere in Victoria, you'd see 100% of kids doing something. So we've developed a program, an enrichment program, and that shift has now gone up to more than 75% of kids doing something, and a lot of kids going twice a week. And we do sport, art, music, a whole range of things, and we do a lot of it with parent volunteers as well. So that's been a great shift. As I said, 100 volunteers each week in classrooms. And we've had over 400 parents attending life skills pre-vocational Cert 2 training, with another 130 moving through into diploma. So you're talking about people who have not ever done any of this kind of level training before. And we've had over 90 parents get a job, move into ongoing paid employment. And our evaluation is tracking those parents, so it's not like they've got a job for 6 weeks, but this is ongoing paid employment. So out of all of that, I'm just aware of the time, out of all of that, these are some of the things that we have pulled out, and there are many others, but these are some of the really important aspects of what we are taking forward into our new sites. We need an open, welcoming, single entrance of some kind, a large foyer, single reception, consulting rooms, cafe, internet for community use. So, and the reason we need that is you need somewhere for people to come, to hang about. We want people to come in and hang about. It's not about coming in, somebody opens the glass door, who do you want to see? Oh, you sign in, I've got to escort you here, there and everywhere. It's not about that. This is about, I know there's a place there, there's internet cafes, internet access, printing access, I can make myself a cup of tea, I can meet my friend there, we can have a cup of tea, and we might think about doing some volunteering, or we might help in the garden, or we might go and do some sewing or something. So it's what we're trying to do is develop an entrance to a place that has a very strong educational focus, but we're actually not saying to people, you need to come in and read to your child. Why don't you read to your child? Why is your child late for school today? Why didn't your child turn up? We're not doing any of that. We're actually talking to the adults about what the adult needs are, and what we have found that if you do with people and start where people are at, then they will engage, and once they engage, you can then start talking about all those other things that you really want to talk to them about down the track. So we also need to think about the universal provision of services. We very much believe that we need to start from a universal platform. To get these guys into our place, we need them to understand that this is a place that anyone can come to. We're not targeting you because. And so because of that, because we've had this open, universal, anyone can come in and out, we get all kinds of people. We get people who don't have kids in the school as well. But maternal and child health services, our early childhood services, our playgroups, they're all about bringing in people, and then through relationship building over time, you can identify needs and issues and offer support that is available. Our vision, outcomes and service models co-designed with community and agency and sector partners. So we can come up with a vision. We've got a vision, every child and family succeeds in life. That's our vision. But in terms of the sites and the new sites we're going into, the way the vision statements and the outcomes will be determined will be in co-design. So we'll come up with some ideas, we'll work with them and refine it with them. So it's engaging with people all along the way. The collaborative governance with mechanisms for resolving system level barriers. So the way we've been structured, and we're very fortunate, we have a 3-tiered governance structure that's been set up for the 10 schools, with the Secretary of Education chairing the steering committee. Then there's a strategic operational group which is at the Deputy Secretary and Regional Director level, and then there are site implementation groups that the local communities come together around the table and determine what it is they want for their site. So we have a mechanism that if we find there are barriers to what we want to do, we can go right through to the Secretary very easily, and from the Secretary to the Minister. We believe all the decisions that we make, they need to be informed by data and evidence. So we need to have the evidence. We need to collect data. We need to stop doing things if the data tells us they're not making a difference. We're very good at starting programs, excellent at doing that actually, but we're not very good at stopping them if they don't work often. We just keep doing what we're doing. So we really need to think about what the data and what the evidence tells us. We need to ensure high quality evidence-based services, and in the teaching space, I'm a teacher so I can say this, often a lot of the teaching that we do is not good quality teaching. We need to be much more intentional, and we really need to improve what we do in that space. And we need flexibility, innovation, and we need long-term commitment. None of this work is going to be achieved in 2 or 3 years. We make a 10-year commitment. We're in year 7 this year at Doveton, and we're seeing lots of great things, but we're now looking at the next 5 years. We've got a long way to go still, so it takes time. So the challenges in doing this, and you will know a lot of these already, trying to get all the players around the table in a shared vision and agreed outcomes is not the easiest thing to do. People have different ideas. There's no coherent policy framework to undertake cross-sectorial work, and it's great to hear the Minister talk about the importance of that up here, and how we get departments and work across departments. What is a priority for one department might not be for another department, and that's a challenge. Short-term targeted funding programs are not what we want to support. We want to look at long-term funding that drives systemic change. We now need, with the money short, needs are high. We need to look at how we collaborate much more effectively to get the best value for the dollars that are currently available. And the lead time to engage in the co-design models, and I know Matthew is very aware of this with the work in Logan, it takes a long time. So we worked for 2 years in Doveton before the doors opened. So the community engagement process was 2 years, and it's still continuing now. But it wasn't until 3 years after we opened that we started seeing some outcomes. So that's a long haul. You've got to stay in for the long haul. You need flexible spaces and places. So this is not about school rebuilds necessarily, although you do need spaces for this work. You need places for people to come and hang about and feel comfortable. And that's a challenge. Often the facilities that we've got are not geared up for that. Communication between disciplines and agencies, there's often competing priorities, and when we talk with school teachers and health providers, they keep going like this. The language just doesn't match up at all. When we opened Doveton and we had child health nurses and allied health, and everybody used the same staff room, one single staff room, and the teachers would be saying, who are these people in our staff room? Why are these people using our milk? I can't tell you how many times that came up. But they're real things, on the ground. They are real things on the ground. We need quality leadership. It takes strong leadership on the ground for these things to work, really committed leadership, people that are prepared to change and take risk, because there is an element of risk in this, calculated, but there is an element of risk. And the complexities of sharing data, you would all know that. There is a whole lot of issues about how we share data. We've managed to track data. We've tracked children from early years right through the school system, and we're tracking the engagement of their families. We've got ethics approved, and we're working with the university to look at how we can look at de-identified data. But we need to be able to track, and we need to be able to share data to do that. And then there's all sorts of issues around levels of evidence. We do a lot of qualitative storytelling. People really can relate when you do the storytelling, but then you need the hard data that actually says, how was the NAPDAM results? How did it improve? How many people actually got a job? Where are they? Those kinds of things. You really need some hard numbers as well. So I'll finish there. That's kind of very, very quick. I can talk for hours on this if people already know that, but I'm really happy to take any questions if you'd like to.
It's very, very compelling, as I said in my introduction, and we've got a few minutes for some questions, so can we ask the audience for a question? Laurie Karansky, over our local member for Yarrabilba area.
Good morning. Thank you for coming to Queensland. I had the great pleasure of actually going to Doveton last year on a delegation with Council and with Lend-Lease and also with our amazing CHaPs team, so I've seen this firsthand and it's awesome. My question to you is, looking back, the benefit of hindsight is 2020. What do you wish you had known when you started this journey? Because in Yarrabilba, we're going to open a facility that's somewhat based on this in August this year. So,
oh, that's an interesting question. Probably lots of things. I think that one of the big issues that we faced at Doveton when we opened this kind of beautifully architecturally designed place, it was quite clear after 12 months that it wasn't suitable at all for what we wanted to do. It wasn't big enough, nowhere near big enough for the work we needed to do, but the architecturally designed spaces actually didn't meet the need that we had with that community. So we've had two principals at our school, both have been fantastic, and then we've actually had to rebuild some of it. So now getting a better sense of access and, there's been a big tendency to put facilities on school sites, and in Victoria we've been doing it for a while, and I guess you guys have been doing it too, every state has. And this is not about putting facilities on school sites, it's not about that at all. I think that I would have taken much longer time with our partners, the time that we had. Knowing what I know now, I would have had different conversations with our partners then. And I think that we would have spent a lot more time and been more involved in the spaces, what the spaces that we need, the hangabout spaces and how that works. And I also think that we would have spent a lot more time with the school staff. Schools are, and I'm hopefully being very respectful saying this, but schools have been about places for children, teachers in charge of classrooms, and parents there are always exceptions, but parents kind of periphery to that. And I think what we're trying to do is say that schools are open facilities, even down to the administration, in schools. When someone walks in the door, we need someone to say, you get one chance at some of these families. You need someone to say, g'day, how you going? Lovely to see you. How can we help? That's what you need. But that sounds so simple, but it's very hard to get people to behave in that way. And to behave in a way that, regardless of what's presented in front of them, and sometimes some of our families are tough in the early days, it's still that positive, strength-based, engagement. So I would spend more time around some of those things, I think, and probably setting up. I wouldn't collect as much data. We collected this much data because we were scared stiff we might miss something, and we're now shaping it, to this much. Yeah.
Thank you, June. Another question? One question over here, Shirley.
Jude, you talked about and showed us a very long list of departments. You also talked about the importance of data and evidence-based and high quality, and I'd just like you to speak a bit more about how you collected all those partners and how much you selected them based on some of those other criteria that were obviously important to you.
Yeah. So the foundation, this is going back into the early story of Doveton. So Doveton was a regeneration area. The closure of 3 state schools is a big deal. And so there was a huge team from the department that went out and did massive community consultation around the school closure. At the same time, we were running consultations around the new school and what the new school might look like. And of course there was crossover, but there was massive consultation with agencies as well as with community. In those days we had a very large, what we called a Family and Children's Services Reference Group. We had about 38 agencies around the table. We met every month, argued a lot, and a lot of those agencies believed that because it was philanthropic partnership coming in, there'd be money to deliver programs. So for some of our agencies that was their interest, for others it wasn't. So those 39 agencies over time, when we came to the last year, we sat down to look at a common referral form, intake form across agencies. We ended up with 9 agencies around the table that were committed ongoing. So they kind of whittled themselves out. Some agencies, when they realised there wasn't money to provide programs, they didn't participate. But we've got the agencies that we've got up there on that list have been with us from day one and have stayed with us, sharing the vision. The whole purpose of what we were doing was to get people to bring their existing resources and so that you can utilise and stop there's not a lot of duplication, but a lot of no-show. It's not that there weren't services, that people just didn't use them. The referral processes were dreadful. They just didn't use them. So it was how we worked on that. And no wrong door, people telling their story once was our goal. So when we did the single enrolment form, we started around the table together and said, okay, if we want people to tell their story once, what is it that we need to do so that that happens? And of course privacy is the big issue that came up, how you sign off on privacy. It took us 9 months to agree on a single enrolment form. And of course we had to base it off the school platform as well. So the collection of data, and during that whole time we also worked on the outcomes framework. We worked backwards saying that we weren't going to do a whole lot of surveys and develop new data instruments. There is so much data out there, we're swimming in it. We just don't access it and we don't make use of it. So once we've got a suite of outcomes and indicators, then we look for the data source that was already existing that could tell us how we're performing on those indicators. That's how we work backwards with the evaluation methodology, and then each of our partner agencies agreed to provide information. So say the children provides information on how many people come to playgroup, how often, blah, blah. So we tap into they have to collect data anyway for funding purposes, so we draw on that. So we've got those agreements. So it's about gathering data from existing resources, working with the departments about, and a lot of data, I don't know what it's like here, but in our state, our child health data, for example, attendance and things like that, can't be released until the minister signs it off. So, there's kind of processes you have to go through, but the amount of data that was in people's bottom drawer really stunned me. And so we haven't developed separate data instruments.
Thank you very much. We have a question over here on the left.
Hi, June. Thanks so much for this morning. It was great. I was really interested in, you touched on it around the practice and language between the different disciplines. And I know I was doing some similar work about 12 years ago, and that we came up with this thing around transdisciplinary practice. I'm really interested in you maybe talking more about that.
My background is in disability, and I ran a transdisciplinary team a long time ago now. So I understand transdisciplinary teamwork. We don't, it's not transdisciplinary. It's kind of interdisciplinary, I would say. So we've got more disciplines working together. One of the biggest challenges in the disciplines, particularly when you look at social work and psychology and physios and people, not so much the allied health services, but certainly social work and psych, is around they do a lot of work that isn't shared with anyone else, you would know. And so it's how we can, when we're working with families, how families can get a comprehensive idea about where their child's up to and what they need to be doing. So we've got a health and wellbeing team at the college at 12 people, part of that team. Out of the 640 or so primary and secondary kids in the school, 300 or so are in receipt of secondary support. We're talking about a whole range of kids with very high needs. Huge numbers involved with child protection. Active cases with child protection are very high. So what we do is we meet regularly. We have, one of the first things was I led a discussion with, there were about 15 allied health people, health and wellbeing people around the table. We looked at every child in the college, trying to identify for who those kids were in receipt of secondary support and how many of them had a case lead or case manager or just somebody that was responsible for them. And at that point, 10 of those kids had a case lead. So needless to say, they all had multiple agencies involved. It was just kind of a mess. So what we did was make sure that every child had a nominated lead, and that lead had a responsibility. And some of that lead was our staff, some of that lead was agency staff or child and family services staff. And over time, with the supports we've put in place, that number has dwindled down to 100, which is fantastic. But it's still a very big challenge because to work with child protection, with social workers in the school system and social workers in the health system, psychs in the school system, psychs in the health system, they just don't join up at all, and people keep their records and data very close to them. So to try and get a mental health plan developed or a behaviour plan developed that's consistent, it's work in progress. It's very difficult.
Thank you, June. It's very timely that, and I'll come to you, that probably will need to be our last question down the front here for the microphone. Thank you. It's very timely for us because we're working with the Department of Education about what data do we collect to look at working with government to say if we put in an integrated services hub in our very large growing areas, how do we justify it in one area and not the other area, because we only have so much, obviously money's short, as you said. Needs high, money's short. And so we're looking and working with the Department of Education and with the various stakeholders around what is the data that we use to say this community, and it isn't about bricks and mortar, but it's needed to be able to help all the people get together in the same location. So the solution is not in the bricks and mortar, it's the enabler. The solution is people working together and overcoming many of the challenges. And I know we're running short of time, but we've got one more question here and then we'll have to move on.
Have you implemented NDIS yet, and do you think that will affect how your model may work into the future?
No, we haven't implemented NDIS yet, and we've actually just started having conversations, and yeah, we'll see. Yeah. So.